Well, if you book your domain name through one of the neighborhood cyber centers, there's a good chance that that domain name is actually powered by DirectEye. Yup, the first domain registrar here in India. They're also one of the leaders in the global web infrastructure space. I met with Bhavin Turakhia, the founder of DirectEye, and he took us down memory lane. Well, we promised you a special today, and I'm very happy to have with us Bhavin Turakhia, founder of DirectEye, the DirectEye Group. It's a group which in some ways is powering bulk of the web infrastructure in this country. It's the 8th largest registrar and it's valued at over $300 million. Bhavin, it's an interesting story, and DirectEye does so many things today that often it's difficult to describe what exactly DirectEye does. So what is your 6-line pitch of what DirectEye actually does?
So largely, DirectEye is sort of divided into two broad businesses. One is what we call the web presence business or web infrastructure business, which largely comprises of sort of large number of products and services that customers will need to put up their web presence online. So we, across different brands, so we actually run a brand called BigRock.com.
Sure.
We run another one called ResellerClub.com, the third one called LogicBox.com.
Right.
All these three brands in turn
helping consumers come online.
The other part of the business is the online advertising business, which basically comprises of enabling publishers and advertisers to maximize their revenue from online advertising.
DirectEye is a very interesting story because it actually started with a loan of 25,000 rupees over a decade ago. So take us back through those days.
At that point in time, there were about 35,000 internet connections in the country, and we figured that anybody who wants to go online and set up a web presence is going to need server space, and you could only buy server space in the US, and you're going to need hosting, you're going to need domain names, etc. So we actually set up a business to do that, and as you rightly pointed out, borrowed sort of 25 grand from Dad to pay for the first quarter of the server, and we actually the first month itself we got 40 clients and generated enough revenue to pay back that loan and pay for the next quarter for the server, and then continue sort of growing from there.
Yeah, what were your first few steps? What were your big tipping points, big highlights in scaling up DirectEye's business?
We actually became the first ICANN accredited domain registrar in 2001
in India.
In India, and that's sort of our first tipping point. Started a reseller focused model. We got resellers both in India as well as globally who bought domain names from us and sold them to their customer base.
One big decision you all made clearly over there was that, hey, you know, it doesn't make sense to reach out to consumers for domain names directly. We need to set up a sort of a franchisee model and go through other people to actually sell domain names. Very unlike the West, where West was reaching out to consumers directly right up front. So what prompted you to take that decision?
Actually, two fundamental reasons behind that decision. One is that we're a tech company. We've always been a tech-focused company. I myself am, geek at heart, and a lot of people out here are tech-focused. So our goal was let's focus on technology and leave sort of the selling and business to the other to other folks around the world. The second aspect was, in India, as I said before, there were very few internet connections, very few websites. We wanted to sell these products and services, worldwide, hosting and domain names.
Coming to the first big business of DirectEye, which is Reseller Club, right? So how many franchisees you all have in total, and how really do you go about acquiring these guys in India?
Sure, Reseller Club actually has 65,000 resellers worldwide in close to 200 countries or more. What we do is we have a transfer price. We sell it to them at a particular price. And they're free to sell those products at whatever price they want to. On top of that, we provide them with complete business automation tools in terms of their own website, their shopping cart, their billing tools, their support tools. So we give them a business in a box, sort of an automation platform that allows our resellers to buy domains and hosting from us and sell to their customers without really having to move a muscle, literally.
So you're sort of creating new web entrepreneurs over here in India.
Or enabling existing web entrepreneurs to do more business than they otherwise would have done.
So that's one part of the business. The other part of the business, which many don't really understand so well, is media.net, right? And Kenzo and all of that comes under media.net.
It's actually largely handled by also my younger brother Dev. So media.net is in the business of contextual advertising. So we essentially assist large publishers to put up ads on their website that enable them to maximize their revenue and money.
So how different is what Kenzo offers to, say, a Google AdSense, which is already established in the market?
From a very, very fundamental standpoint, it's actually quite similar.
So one fundamental difference is that while Google AdSense, the algorithms are based on content. So algorithm is primarily focused on a domain name because
the domain parking piece, yes. Domain parking piece.
Because a lot of these websites, they don't really have content themselves, right?
The larger revenue owners, etc., happen to be generic domain names that people just type into, to be able to get to content related to that word.
Like health.com, for instance.
Health.com.
There's actually no content related to health. But people come there to see other information.
Well, in some sense, it's a directory of links that would be relevant to health.com. Created specifically for the users actually landing on that particular.
Another question which a lot of people are asking is the fact that Kenzo actually powers ads to a number of domain names, right? But there's also a big industry around domain squatting, right? Because actually buying domain names and selling it to other folks. And there's a big impression that DirectEye is in that business as well.
There's domain speculation and cyber squatting. Domain speculation is if I happen to buy health.com 10 years ago and I sell it today for $500,000. But that's because I happen to know and I had a foresight that I could buy health.com 10 years ago, right? Cyber squatting on the other hand is if I ended up buying Microsoft.in before Microsoft,
Sure.
and you know,
Okay.
literally blackmailed Microsoft
Okay.
into buying it from me at a high price.
And
And that's actually in some sense
legal infringement.
legal infringement.
Right.
It-
But
it's act-
speculation is a business that Director never got into.
No, we didn't. I mean, I know a time we were selling domain names for $70 to tons of our customers, and today many of those domain names are worth, you know, a couple of $100,000, etc. We could have picked up some of those assets ourselves. We didn't.
Okay.
In some sense, I hope we had, but
Obviously, one big initiative is BigRock.com. You have finally launched a brand for the consumer. Bhavin, what told you that, hey, now might be a good time to go consumer focused?
in some sense, you know, we've spent a decade in understanding and knowing the business and building out the products, and now we've got a pretty comprehensive product portfolio. In some sense, also largely the socioeconomic factors in the country are changing quite a bit. Like 3G and WiMAX auctions took place, and now there's a significant amount of capital being spent behind really creating broadband connectivity and making a reality across the country.
Do you think Indian penetration is at a tipping point?
It is at a tipping point. You know, studies from Gartner, Forrester, etc., talk about how the 100 million internet users today are going to grow to 400 million in the next 4 years. I mean, that's no other country can offer that kind of growth.
So, building and scaling this product, building and scaling the company, making revenues, marketing, HR, what has been some of your key challenges? What has given Bhavin Turakhia the maximum sleepless nights while building Direct?
Well, you know, as the saying goes, it seems people think I hardly sleep at night, which in some sense is true anyways. I mean, I think one of our biggest key challenges is sort of finding literally the best talent that exists in the country. You know, we take pride in ourselves as being sort of amongst the top recruiters in the country in terms of the best talent that's available.
Really, so attracting talent is one of the key challenges Direct has encountered, and they managed to quell this challenge by building a very colorful and dynamic work environment. So come, follow me. So Bhavin, we are at the famous Direct cafeteria, and clearly folks here are enjoying themselves. The people are playing pool, people are playing the table tennis. Clearly enjoying yourself is a key part of the work here, Direct, isn't it?
Well, flexibility is. What we believe in is that you know, you can only be passionate about something that you really love. We actually, you know, fundamentally talk about the fact that you really need to love what you're doing.
Right.
Only then you can deliver your best. Only then you can give your best to it.
Right. Also, most of you all have free monitors, and there seems to be a small cap on expenditure as regards to how much you want to spend.
We're actually, every one of us are actually sticklers when it comes to productivity. Monitors, for instance, you stated as an example, everybody in this organization at the minimum has 2 monitors. Typically it's 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 monitors in certain cases.
Right.
And the idea is, you know, it actually, like, from what I remember correctly, in the time that we had done this research, like, the moment you add your first monitor, your productivity bumps up by about 37%.
No dress code as well.
There's never been a dress code, yeah.
Right, so Bhavin, you've just returned from Singapore, and one big thing that happened over there is, of course, this new regulation in terms of top-level domains, right? So the ICANN, which you're a part of, is actually approving a whole bunch of new top-level domains. You no longer .coms, .ins, it could be .hotel or .car or .anything. Take us through that development, and what does it really mean to Direct?
So it's been 6 years in the making. It's actually one of the most iconic moments the last 12 years in the domain name industry. We're actually going to apply for some top-level strings ourselves.
Right.
And then provide domain names, become
free for reselling that.
For reselling domain names in that top-level
So
string. Until now, we're selling domain names in .com. Now we'll be a .dot something ourselves.
Right.
And there's a couple of strings that we're sort of looking at.
Going public or going IPO is the big sign of the coming of the technology company, right? And we saw that with the Make My Trip IPO in the NASDAQ. And you've spoken about it in the past as well. When is Direct going to go IPO?
So we actually have tried to stay away from going public in some sense, largely as entrepreneurs, and a lot of entrepreneurs realize this. So when you start going towards the direction of going public, you start losing focus to what matters towards your business.
You stop being an entrepreneur.
You stop being an entrepreneur. You start bothering with all the compliances, financial stuff, and the investor relationships, etc. But no, clearly it is something that's in the cards.
Right.
It not only signifies, I mean, in some sense signifies coming, growth, and
access to new funds,
etc. But in some sense it also allows an opportunity for our employees and people to sort of partake in sort of the actual valuation and really
incentivizing them
make value for themselves, in terms of their options and things like that. We don't have any definitive timeline, but quite likely, some or all of our businesses are moving towards that direction in the next couple of years.
Okay, you're a role model entrepreneur, Bhavin, and there are a number of entrepreneurs watching this show today. If there are 3 lessons you've learned by building this business, 3 lessons you'd like to give entrepreneurs who are watching, what would your 3 pieces of advice would that be?
One of the first most important principles I talk about to all of my team leads and everybody within the organization, entrepreneurs outside, is don't compromise on recruitment. Always bring on board the best of talent. We actually never compromise on that.
Okay.
Bring on board the best talent. Give them the freedom and the flexibility to sort of work their magic. The third thing would be sort of create an environment where people have, one of the things that we're really, really sticklers about is sort of measurements and numbers.
What gets measured gets managed.
Exactly. You put it brilliantly.
Yeah. So Bhavin, sitting now in 2011, 10 years from now, if you were to meet again, what's your vision over the next 10-year period for Direct?
The goal is to form one of the largest internet brands in the world.
Okay.
And that's really what our goal and ambition is. Over and above that, we'd like to make contribution to various other social causes and spaces. One of the things that we're very passionate about is education. And one of the things I want to do, 5-7 years down the line, is sort of start working towards how DirectEye can make an impact and contribution to the world in terms of education also.
One of the largest internet brands in the world. Bhavin, we'd like to wish you the very best of luck. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
Great, and DirectEye is also working on a web-based chat application for the consumer market, and that should hit the market real soon. While I go ahead and grab myself a cuppa, it's time for us to take a quick break here on the show. But coming up, all the action from the NASSCOM Emerge or Conclave in Chennai.